Ah, man, 1 day, slightly less than 1 day, actually, would have made all the difference. Well, not all the difference, but some of the difference. Put up a video yesterday all about Monster Hunter Rise and its impending PC port, and its even sooner impending PC port demo, which comes out this week. In that video, I tried to cover as many things as I could possibly think of that you would need or want or be interested to know about the PC port of Monster Hunter Rise, how it differs from the Switch version, and that sort of interplay there for anyone sort of looking to come over to the PC version who've played the Switch version, or people looking to jump on board with Rise who don't own a Switch or didn't want to buy it on Switch, decided to wait, because we've known a PC version was coming for quite some time, so it's not like they sprung it up on us. Some people have deliberately chosen to wait and didn't play it on the Switch because, well, they prefer to wait for a better, shinier, cleaner, faster version, which is fair enough. I couldn't wait. I wanted to play it on PC, but I couldn't wait to play it, so I got it on Switch. Hello again, I am Blunty, and the 1 day I'm talking about refers to something I brought up in yesterday's video about cross-play, cross-save, and cross-progression, and a whole section of the video talking about those things. And to boil down what I said, just as a refresher, I said, well, cross-progression is something I would desperately like to have, although I'm still thinking about starting a fresh character side by side with everything I've achieved so far in it. Cross-play could be a tricky thing. And I said it could be a tricky thing because, one, well, you'd have to disable voice chat, which is coming in the PC version, but of course does not exist in the Nintendo Switch version because Nintendo just hate voice chat. But the other major roadblock that I predicted might be an issue in cross-play was the fact that Monster Hunter Rise is the first Nintendo Switch game to have used Nintendo's newly rebuilt from the ground up online multiplayer architecture and servers and such. The version that we're using before this came all the way back from the Wii, I think. They upgraded it for the Wii U and then again for the Switch, and it was always garbage. It had consistent problems in every game that used it, and it was always garbage. So they finally invested the time, money, and effort required to rebuild it, and the first game to use it was Monster Hunter Rise. And it works great. So that's fantastic. And the issue I brought up in yesterday's video is, well, because that's Nintendo's service, that's their servers, that's their infrastructure that Capcom are using. Did Nintendo build that with cross-play in mind? And I was guessing probably not, because Nintendo's got a Nintendo, and there's always a little catch, isn't there? And it turns out my instinct on that may very well have been correct. Now, I also said in yesterday's video there's hope for both of these features, because after they released the trailer for the PC version, they also put out a survey for players. They said, hey, fill in the survey, and there was a bunch of regular normal questions, but there also are questions directly regarding cross-save, cross-play, cross-progression. They were interested in finding out how many people were interested in it. And, we were guessing, well, they wouldn't be asking that question if they already hadn't done some work on it and knew people wanted it and just wanted to see how much people wanted that, so they can figure out how much more work to put in it, whether or not to get it ready for launch, or is it worth delaying, where's the focus got to be? Turns out that might not have been the case, because they have now, and this is the 1 day later thing I was talking about, responded directly to this question in an official tweet. I'll read it for you here. We have heard your requests for cross-save / cross-play for Monster Hunter Rise and Sunbreak being the DLC that's coming in next year. But unfortunately, after looking into it throughout the development process, we found we are unable to implement it at this time. This is less than 2 weeks after they asked people whether they would want it. So if they've been working on this for the entire development, then they asked people how much they wanted it, and then a week and a half later they suddenly discover they can't do it? Smells a bit fishy to me. So the wording here is very interesting as well. We found we are unable to implement it this time. Not at this time. Is that a typo? Is that a translation error from the Japanese team? Very weird wording. You would often expect something like this to be worded, we can't do it at this time. That way, you let people hang on to a bit of hope without telling them flat out no, because any PR people will tell you, if you tell people no, then they're going to get their backs up about it and I'm boycotting the game. And don't pretend that's an exaggeration. You've all seen it. But if you give them, at this time, and then just let people gradually forget about they were ever hoping for that feature, then that's a little bit easier for the company and PR and, all that sort of stuff to deal with. But no, instead they said, we can't implement it this time. Unable to implement it. Now, I've asked them on Twitter, and I don't expect a response to this because you never get responses to questions like this? Almost never, because, well, you're not speaking to the people who know. You're speaking to some friggin' dipshit intern Zoomer who just, you know, copies and pastes from a script what they're told to post. But I did make sure to ask them, you know, in a public space, so people sort of start thinking about this, is it a technological issue? Like, is it, as I suspect, because they're using Nintendo's online infrastructure for the Switch version, is that the roadblock that's stopping them doing, you know, cross-save, cross-play, cross-progression on PC? Because as I pointed out in yesterday's video, there's already a big list of games that already do cross-play, cross-save, cross-progression at various levels of competency and ease of use and things like that. You know, Fortnite is obviously the biggest example out there. I brought up Dauntless as a very similar game type that also does it as well, but there's a ton of other games, a literal ton of other games that do cross-play, cross-progression, cross-save just fine on the Nintendo Switch. And I don't know if or how I can find out, you know, but trying to dig into this, how many of those use Nintendo's infrastructure, how many of those use their own, what their method for cross-play, cross-save solution is. A lot of them use third-party account systems, possibly as some sort of middleman between that, and Capcom have their own account system, so that's not out of the question. They could use that as well. And maybe using a middleman to go between Nintendo system and a separate system for PC, maybe that introduces too much latency and just makes the game feel kind of bad when you're trying to co-op. I could see that happening. But that doesn't really solve the issue for cross-save, cross-progression. Does Capcom not have any control over their own save files? Do they not have access to them? Would it be impossible to update Nintendo Switch Monster Hunter Rise to have a feature that just sends that save file up to Capcom servers where you can pull it back down to the PC? Sure, it wouldn't be smooth as butter, cross-progression kind of thing, but at least you could move your save across. I could see that not being impossible, right? You just, you know, take from the game, okay, this character is at this level, this is the gear they have, turn that into a file, squirt it up somewhere useful. Why is that difficult? But I think the most frustrating thing for me personally is I fully intend to play on the PC version because it's just going to feel better. 60 plus FPS frames per second, lovely higher res textures, running at 4K, things like that. I want all of that. I also tended to play Monster Hunter Rise some on the, you know, at the desk here, but I would also grab my Nintendo Switch and sort of curl up in bed with it and do some sort of basic grinding for materials and whatnot, or money or whatever. So obviously without cross-progression, I won't be doing that on the PC version, but I do absolutely want to be on the PC version. The other issue is several of the friends who I like to play with on Monster Hunter Rise won't be playing on PC, either because they just prefer not to, either because their PC just isn't good enough, or at least in one case, a fellow friend and streamer, they tend to play on consoles because their PC isn't quite up to the scratch of running a game and streaming a game at the same time without, you know, causing performance issues. So I won't be able to play with them anymore when it comes to the Sunbreak DLC, unless I go back to the Switch version. And moving back to the Switch version from the PC version without taking my progress with me is bad enough, but also the jarring nature of dropping back down to those sub HD resolutions and 30 FPS. It's very, very jarring to do, and I don't want to do that, so now I'm just isolated from people I used to play with. So that's frustrating. So, all in all, pretty annoying, confusing, and a little bit sad that Capcom couldn't figure out how to do something as basic as moving a save, much less cross-play, which, again, lots and 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 lots of other developers have figured out how to do seamlessly. How that works on Dauntless, for example. It's beautifully seamless. It works so well. And they're a tiny little developer compared to Capcom. Anyway, wanted to get that off my chest. Also wanted to do a little update video. And also, Sydney's out of a 4-month-long quarantine, so I'm going for a fucking walk today. Ha ha! A long walk. A long walk. Thanks to the patrons, obviously. And thank you for watching. I'm Blunty, and we'll catch you next time.